A poor girl enters a luxury restaurant with her mother, dreaming only of blowing out a birthday candle. The arrogant owner humiliates her and tells her to leave, but a millionaire watches in silence. Seeing the pain in the child's eyes, he decides to act, buying not just a cake but changing their lives forever. Little did he know that this simple birthday request would also fulfill his greatest wish, to discover what it is like to have a real family. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us what city you're watching us from. We'll keep going. The golden lights of Le Ciel reflected off the marble floors of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, making the dining room shimmer like a royal ballroom. It was early evening, that magical hour when New York's elite began to filter in for dinners that cost more than what some families spent on groceries for a month. Among the sea of designer suits and couture dresses appeared two figures who didn't belong. A thin 10-year-old girl in a faded lavender dress and worn sandals, and her mother, a woman in her 40s with sun-weathered skin, calloused hands, and simple clothes. The woman's hair was pulled back in a messy bun, her tired eyes reflecting years of struggle. The girl, Lily Thompson, walked with cautious steps toward the mahogany reception desk where Maxwell Harrington, the owner, was speaking with his manager, Vincent Scott. Maxwell wore an impeccably tailored suit that matched his arrogant expression, while Vincent stood tall and thin, his silver hair slicked back, his gaze hard as steel. "It's my birthday today," Lily said, her voice timid yet determined. "My mom doesn't have money for a cake. I just wanted to blow out a candle. I don't even need to eat the cake, I just want to make a wish." She opened a small pink purse and revealed 5 crumpled dollar bills. Maxwell released a quiet, scornful laugh. Vincent leaned forward, looking down at her. "Young lady, this is a fine dining establishment. We don't host children's parties without reservations. Please leave before I call security." Sarah Thompson, her eyes welling with shame, gently pulled her daughter's arm, whispering, "Let's go, honey, this isn't a place for people like us." But Lily resisted, clutching her purse against her chest. Her eyes shimmered with tears and determination. "It's my 10th birthday and 10 is special, and this place is so beautiful, it's like a princess castle." In a corner of the dining room, seated at his usual table, Robert Westbrook silently observed the scene. Known as Bobby to the few people he considered friends, he was the CEO of Westbrook Industries, a corporate empire valued at hundreds of millions. He wore a perfectly tailored navy blue suit, but there was no light in his eyes. He was waiting for investors to finalize another multi-million-dollar contract, but seeing the little girl, he felt a familiar coldness spread through his chest. Bobby had always hated birthdays. When he was 8, he had asked his father, a ruthless tycoon, for a chocolate cake with red toy cars on top. His father had mocked his request and forbidden him from celebrating any birthday, saying that commemorative dates were for weak, useless people. Since then, he had never celebrated birthdays, neither his own nor anyone else's. As he watched Lily being pulled by her mother toward the door, with Vincent nodding to the security guard, Bobby calmly stood up. His voice, cold yet firm, echoed across the dining room. "Is it really your birthday today?" Lily turned, still tearful, and nodded. 10 years is important. I wanted to make a wish. I wanted to feel special just for today." Vincent stepped forward, irritated. "Mr. Westbrook, these people don't have a reservation and are disturbing our clientele. I can remove them immediately." Bobby looked at him without emotion. "Reserve the best table for the 3 of us. And if you want my investor group to dine here this week, provide a cake worthy of a princess." Sarah's eyes widened, trembling with embarrassment. "No, sir, we can't accept." She looked at her daughter. "Let's go, please." But Bobby knelt down to Lily's level, ignoring everyone's discomfort. For a moment, he saw his own childhood reflection in those hopeful brown eyes. "I'm not offering charity. I'm asking for the pleasure of a princess's company at my dinner tonight." Lily smiled. Sarah, overcome with emotion at seeing the sparkle in her daughter's eyes, accepted with a shy nod. At the table, Bobby discovered that Sarah worked as a cleaning assistant in 2 shifts to support her daughter alone since becoming a widow at a young age. They shared a small room in Queens with a mattress on the floor and a small electric stove. Even so, Sarah laughed sweetly when talking about her daughter, saying Lily always dreamed big, as if the world was made for her to shine in. He watched Lily devour her spaghetti with pure joy. Something broke inside him. A man who had always lived in boardrooms, executive flights, elite parties, but who had never seen such a genuine smile. "My husband David died when Lily was just 3, Sarah explained softly. "He was a good man. Worked construction. We were young, had big dreams, but then the accident happened." She twisted her napkin. "The hospital bills took everything we had saved. After that, it was just me and Lily." "Mom's super strong," Lily interjected, tomato sauce smudging her chin. "She works really hard. Sometimes she comes home and her hands are all red and cracked, but she still helps me with my homework." Bobby noticed Sarah's hands, rough with broken nails and dry skin. Hands that told stories of struggle and sacrifice. "What grade are you in, Lily?" he asked, trying to divert the conversation to something lighter. "4th grade. I'm good at math. Mrs. Peterson says I have a gift for numbers," she announced proudly. "Is that so?" Bobby raised an eyebrow, impressed. "What's 13 times 12? 156, Lily answered without hesitation. "Impressive," Bobby nodded. "What about 24 times 9? 216, she replied, beaming. Sarah watched the exchange with a mixture of pride and uncertainty. This wealthy stranger was paying attention to her daughter in a way few people ever had. Part of her remained cautious. Life had taught her that nothing came without a price, but seeing Lily's eyes sparkle as she solved math problems was worth whatever risk she might be taking. "She gets that from her father," Sarah said softly. "David loved puzzles and numbers. Used to say mathematics was the language of the universe." As they finished their entrees, Bobby signaled to Vincent. Shortly after, waiters entered carrying an enormous 3-tiered white cake with pink frosting ribbons and 10 golden candles. Lily's name was written in delicate calligraphy on top. The entire restaurant fell silent at the sight. Lily covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes overflowing with tears. "Every princess deserves a castle-worthy cake," Bobby said. Sarah cried silently, whispering that the cake probably cost more than she earned in an entire month of work. Bobby held her trembling hand for a moment. Her smile is priceless. When Lily blew out the candles, he asked what she had wished for. She lowered her eyes and, in a soft voice, said, "I can't tell you, or it won't come true. But I wished for someone who would take care of Mom and be my dad. I want to know what it's like to have a dad who loves me like my friends at school talk about." Bobby felt a deep impact in his chest. For a moment, he was once again the little boy who had asked for a cake with red toy cars. But now he could be different from his father. As they finished their slices of cake, Bobby handed Sarah a business card. "My company always needs responsible people. Call tomorrow morning." Back in the corner of the restaurant, William Westbrook, Bobby's older brother and the company's CFO, had been watching the entire scene with growing disgust. He tapped a message into his phone. "Bobby's lost his mind, acting like some charity case savior. Board needs to know." Outside the restaurant, Sarah and Lily walked toward the subway, clutching a takeout box with the remaining cake. Lily skipped with newfound energy, while Sarah held the business card like it was a fragile bird, unsure if it represented hope or disappointment waiting to happen. "Mom, do you think he meant it?" "About the job?" Lily asked. Sarah gazed at the embossed card with the Westbrook Industries logo. "I don't know, sweetie. People like that. They live in a different world. Sometimes they forget their promises once they return to it." "He won't forget," Lily stated with absolute certainty. "He has sad eyes like you do sometimes, but when he saw the cake, his eyes weren't sad anymore." Sarah tucked the card safely into her pocket, wondering what tomorrow might bring. The Manhattan skyline glittered around them, a world of wealth and power so far removed from their tiny room in Queens. Yet for one magical evening, they had been welcomed into that world, and the boundary between their universe and Bobby's had momentarily dissolved. "Happy birthday, my little princess," Sarah whispered, kissing the top of Lily's head as they descended into the subway station, carrying the memory of golden candles and unexpected kindness into the night. At precisely 9 o'clock the next morning, Sarah Thompson stood in the gleaming lobby of the Westbrook Tower, clutching her worn purse, her heart hammered against her ribs as she approached the reception desk, where a polished woman in a tailored suit looked up with a practiced smile. "I have an appointment with Mr. Westbrook," Sarah said, her voice smaller than she intended. "Sarah Thompson." The receptionist's eyebrows rose slightly as she checked the system. "Yes, Ms. Thompson, you're expected. Please take the executive elevator to the 52nd floor." Sarah had worn her best outfit, a simple navy dress she kept for job interviews, slightly faded but clean and pressed. She'd spent the early morning hours ironing it, after staying up late sewing a loose button back on and washing her only pair of decent shoes. Still standing in the marble and glass lobby, she felt like an imposter. The elevator rose smoothly, floors ticking by in glowing numbers. Sarah tried to calm her breathing, thinking of Lily's face when she dropped her at school that morning. "You'll get the job, Mum," Lily had said with unwavering confidence. "Mr. Westbrook promised." The doors opened to reveal a reception area that seemed to float above Manhattan. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the city below, and abstract paintings, worth more than Sarah's lifetime earnings, adorned the walls. "Ms. Thompson," a voice called. Bobby Westbrook stood in a doorway, his expression unreadable. "Please come in." His office was surprisingly minimal, a large desk of dark wood, a sitting area with leather chairs, and more panoramic views. No family photos, no personal touches. It reminded Sarah of a hotel room, expensive but impersonal. "Thank you for coming," Bobby said, gesturing to a chair. "Coffee?" "No, thank you," Sarah replied, perching on the edge of the seat. "Mr. Westbrook, I want to thank you for last night. What you did for Lily." "I can't—" "Please," he interrupted, raising a hand. "No thanks necessary." He sat across from her, his posture rigid. "I've reviewed your resume that HR compiled from your application this morning. 2 cleaning jobs, correct?" Sarah nodded. "Yes, sir. Morning shift at Queensbridge Medical Center, evenings at Sutton Place Apartments. And before that? I was taking accounting courses at community college before David, my husband, had his accident. After he passed, I had to drop out to work, full-time." She twisted her wedding ring, still worn 7 years after David's passing. "I was 3 credits short of my associate's degree." Bobby studied her for a moment. "Mrs. Thompson, Ms., she corrected gently. "I go by Ms. now." Something flickered in Bobby's eyes. Recognition, perhaps. "Ms. Thompson, I'm offering you a position as supervisor of our facilities management team. The salary is $75,000 annually, with full benefits, including comprehensive health insurance and a 401k with company matching. Working hours are 8 to 4, Monday through Friday." Sarah's breath caught. It was 5 times what she currently earned. "Mr. Westbrook, I don't have the qualifications for such a position. You've managed 2 jobs while raising a daughter, alone. That shows remarkable organizational skills and work ethic." His tone was businesslike, but something softer lingered beneath. "You'll receive training. I'm confident in your abilities." Sarah felt tears threatening. She blinked them back, unwilling to cry in this pristine office. "Why are you doing this?" Bobby's expression changed almost imperceptibly. "Let's just say I recognize potential when I see it." He slid a contract across the table. "You can start Monday. Our HR director will help with the paperwork." 30 minutes later, Sarah stood outside the tower, clutching an employment packet and feeling like she'd stepped into someone else's life. She pulled out her phone, fingers trembling, as she dialed Lily's school. "Hi, this is Sarah Thompson. Lily's mother. Could you please tell her that we got the job?" She hung up, pressing the phone to her chest, tears finally flowing freely. Meanwhile, on the 51st floor, William Westbrook stormed into his brother's office without knocking. "What the hell are you doing, Bobby?" he demanded, slamming the door. "Giving an executive-level salary to a cleaning woman. The board is already asking questions after your little charity stunt last night. Bobby didn't look up from his computer. I hired someone qualified for a position we needed to fill. End of discussion. Bullshit, William spat. She has no experience, no education. This isn't like you. You've never made emotional decisions. Maybe that's the problem, Bobby replied, finally meeting his brother's gaze. Maybe it's time I started. William's face reddened. Is this about that kid? Because she reminded you of yourself? Or is it the mother? Are you sleeping with her? Already? Bobby stood so quickly his chair rolled back and hit the window. Get out of my office. Dad would be disgusted, William said, voice low. He built this company on cutthroat decisions, not bleeding heart charity. Dad was a miserable man who died alone, Bobby replied coldly. Get out before I say something we'll both regret. After William left, Bobby stood at the window, watching the tiny figures of people far below. For a moment, he saw his father's face reflected in the glass, stern, disapproving. He turned away. That evening, Bobby found himself driving to Queens, a part of New York he rarely visited. He parked his Aston Martin outside a rundown apartment building and checked the address from the HR file. A security door with broken intercom guarded the entrance. He pressed the button for apartment 3B. Sarah's surprised voice crackled through the speaker. Hello? It's Robert Westbrook. I brought some papers for you to sign. There was a pause. Come up. The elevator was out of order, so Bobby climbed 3 flights of stairs, noting the peeling paint and flickering lights. Apartment 3B had 3 locks on the door. Sarah opened it, wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked younger, less guarded. Mr. Westbrook, this is unexpected, she said, stepping aside to let him in. The apartment was tiny but spotlessly clean. A folding screen partially concealed a mattress on the floor. A small table with 2 chairs stood near a kitchenette barely bigger than a closet. What struck Bobby most were the books, stacks of them on every surface organized by subject. The walls were covered with Lily's artwork and what appeared to be math worksheets with gold stars. Bobby! Lily came running from behind the screen, wearing pajamas with planets on them. Mum said we're going to work with you, is that true? Will we see you every day? Sarah gave her daughter a gentle look. Mr. Westbrook is very busy, honey. We won't bother him at work. No bother, Bobby said, surprising himself. He handed Lily a package he'd been carrying. I thought you might like this. Lily unwrapped it to reveal a telescope. Her eyes widened. A real one? For stars and planets and everything. I noticed your pajamas, Bobby said awkwardly, and there was a book about space on your shelf. I'm going to be an astronaut, Lily announced, or maybe a mathematician who works for NASA. I haven't decided, yet. That's great, Bobby replied, unused to children's directness. Either one sounds impressive. Sarah watched the interaction, her expression unreadable. Lily, why don't you set up your telescope by the window while I talk to Mr. Westbrook? Once Lily was occupied, Sarah turned to Bobby, her voice low. Mr. Westbrook, these gestures are incredibly kind, but I need to be clear. I won't accept charity. I want to earn my place at your company. It's not charity, Bobby insisted. And please call me Bobby. Bobby, she tested the name. I've spent 7 years making sure Lily never feels like a charity case. Her father would have wanted her to understand the value of hard work. I respect that, Bobby said, which is why I'm not offering handouts. I'm offering opportunity. There's a difference. Sarah studied him as if trying to decode a puzzle. Why us? Out of all the struggling families in New York, why did you help us? Bobby looked over at Lily, who was carefully assembling the telescope by the window. When I was 8, I asked my father for a birthday cake with red toy cars. He told me birthdays were for weak people. He forbade celebrations in our house after that. The words came out before he could stop them. I haven't celebrated a birthday since mine or anyone else's. Sarah's expression softened. Until last night. Bobby nodded, uncomfortable with his own vulnerability. I should go. There aren't actually any papers to sign. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. We're okay, Sarah said with a small smile. We've always been okay. But thank you. As Bobby turned to leave, Lily called out, Wait, come. See, Jupiter, I found it! Against his better judgment, Bobby walked over and bent down to peer through the telescope. The bright planet glowed against the black canvas of space. See, Lily said excitedly, that's where I'm going someday. I believe you will, Bobby said, meaning it. As he drove back to his penthouse in Manhattan, Bobby felt something unfamiliar, a lightness in his chest. His phone buzzed with messages from investors and board members, but for once he didn't immediately check them. Across town, William Westbrook sat in his home office, a glass of scotch in hand, staring at old family photos. One showed a young Bobby, perhaps 8 years old, standing stiffly beside their father at a company event. No smile, no childish exuberance, just a miniature businessman in training. William picked up his phone and dialed a number. Patricia, it's William Westbrook. I need to discuss my brother's recent behavior with the board. Yes, it's urgent. I believe his judgment may be compromised. He hung up and looked again at the photo of young Bobby. Sorry, little brother, he muttered, but someone has to protect the Westbrook legacy, even from you. Monday morning arrived with a mixture of excitement and terror for Sarah. She stood in front of a department of 20 facilities management employees, all watching her with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. Most had been with Westbrook Industries for years. All were aware of her unusual hiring circumstances. I know what you're thinking, Sarah began, her voice steadier than she felt. Who is this woman, and why is she suddenly in charge? The truth is, I've spent the last 7 years cleaning hospitals and apartments. I've worked double shifts, weekends and holidays. I know what it means to maintain facilities that others take for granted. She paused, making eye contact with each person. I don't have fancy credentials, but I have experience with every cleaning challenge imaginable. What I don't know, I'm willing to learn. What I do know, I'm eager to share. I hope you'll give me a chance to earn your respect. In the back of the room, Bobby watched silently. He'd come to observe, telling himself it was a standard practice for new management positions. In reality, he wanted to see Sarah succeed. By lunchtime, Sarah had conducted a full review of their cleaning protocols, identified 3 inefficiencies in their supply chain, and learned every team member's name. Bobby left without speaking to her, a small smile playing at his lips. Meanwhile, news of Sarah's appointment traveled quickly through the corporate grapevine. In the executive dining room, conversations hushed when Bobby entered. William sat with several board members, their expressions carefully neutral. Bobby, William called, gesturing to an empty chair, join us. We were just discussing your innovative hiring practices. Bobby took the seat, nodding to the others. If you're referring to Ms. Thompson, she's already implementing improvements to our facilities management protocols. Patricia Winters, the company's oldest board member, raised an eyebrow. It's not her qualifications we're questioning, Robert. It's your judgment. First, the restaurant incident. Now this unprecedented promotion. People are talking. Let them talk, Bobby replied, cutting into his steak. Results will speak louder. It's not just about results, William interjected. It's about perception. Investors are nervous. They're asking if you're having some kind of, breakdown. Bobby's knife scraped across the plate. Interesting theory. Is that your professional diagnosis, Dr. Westbrook? Don't be petulant, William snapped. We're trying to protect you and the company. Dad would what? Bobby interrupted, his voice dangerously quiet. Crush anyone who showed a hint of humanity. Belittle any decision based on something other than profit margins. I'm well aware of what our father would do. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Finally, Patricia spoke. The board has concerns, Robert. Valid ones. We've scheduled a special meeting for Friday to discuss the direction of leadership. The implied threat hung in the air. Bobby stood, his lunch barely touched. I'll be there. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run. As Bobby stormed back to his office, his phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Lily's school called. She's sick. Need to pick her up. We'll make up hours tomorrow. Without thinking, he texted back, take the day. I'll stop by later to check on her. He paused, staring at the message he'd just sent. What was he doing? This wasn't like him. Getting involved, caring about an employee's personal life. Yet he couldn't bring himself to retract the offer. That evening, Bobby knocked on the door of apartment 3B, holding a paper bag from a pharmacy and a container of soup from an upscale Manhattan restaurant. Sarah opened the door, surprise evident on her face. "You actually came," she said. "I said I would." Bobby shifted uncomfortably. "How is she?" "Fever of 101. Doctor says it's just a virus." Sarah stepped aside to let him in. "You didn't have to bring anything." "I wasn't sure what you might need," Bobby admitted, handing her the bag. "There's medicine, a thermometer, some other things the pharmacist recommended." Sarah peered into the bag. "This is very thoughtful. Thank you." Lily was propped up on the mattress, surrounded by books and looking pale but alert. Her face brightened when she saw Bobby. "You came to visit me?" she asked, voice scratchy. "I heard you weren't feeling well," Bobby said, awkwardly perching. On the edge of a chair, Sarah pulled up. "I brought soup. Is it chicken noodle? Dad always said that's the best medicine for colds." "It's actually butternut squash with ginger," Bobby replied, "but I can get chicken noodle if you prefer." "No. I want to try it," Lily said eagerly. "I've never had butternut squash soup before." As Sarah went to heat the soup, Bobby found himself alone with Lily. He glanced around, desperate for conversation topics, and noticed a math workbook open beside her. "Homework even when you're sick?" he asked. "Math isn't homework. It's fun," Lily replied matter-of-factly. "I'm learning about fractions. They're tricky but cool." Bobby picked up the workbook. "I was good at math when I was your age." "Were you good at making friends too?" Lily asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. "No, not really. Why do you ask?" Lily shrugged. "Some kids at school say I'm weird because I like math and space more than TikTok and makeup. Mom says it's okay to be different, but sometimes it feels lonely." Bobby felt a pang of recognition so strong it almost took his breath away. "Your mother is right. The kids who make fun of you now will probably work for you someday." This made Lily giggle, which turned into a coughing fit. Sarah returned with the soup, giving Bobby a grateful look. "Small sips," she instructed her daughter. "Mr. Westbrook has to go now. He's very busy." "Actually," Bobby said, surprising himself again, "I can stay a while, if that's okay." An hour turned into 2. Bobby helped Lily with her fractions, then found himself drawn into a game of cards. Sarah joined them after putting away laundry, and soon they were laughing over a competitive game of Go Fish. Bobby couldn't remember the last time he'd played something so simple or laughed so freely. When Lily's eyes began to droop, Sarah tucked her in, and Bobby moved to the small kitchen area. He watched as Sarah checked Lily's temperature, adjusted her blanket, and kissed her forehead. The tenderness of the gesture made something ache inside him. "You're good at that," he said, quietly when Sarah joined him. "Being a mother?" Sarah smiled tiredly. "I had good examples. My parents were wonderful, loving but firm. They died when I was in college. Car accident." "I'm sorry," Bobby said. "That must have been difficult." "It was," Sarah acknowledged. "But they left me with so much love that I never felt truly alone. That's what I want for Lily, to know she's loved no matter what happens." Bobby nodded, thinking of his own childhood in a mansion full of expensive things but devoid of warmth. "She's lucky to have you." "What about your parents?" Sarah asked, pouring them both tea in mismatched mugs. "You mentioned your father, but not your mother." Bobby stared into his tea. "My mother left when I was 6. Couldn't handle my father's intensity. She sent birthday cards for a few years, then stopped. I don't know if she's alive or dead." "I'm sorry," Sarah said simply. "Don't be. It was a long time ago." Bobby checked his watch. "I should go, it's getting late." At the door, Sarah hesitated, then said, "Thank you for coming. It meant a lot to Lily. And to me." Their eyes met, and for a moment, Bobby felt an unfamiliar warmth spread through his chest. Without thinking, he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Sarah's breath caught, and Bobby quickly pulled his hand back. "Good night, Sarah," he said, his voice rougher than intended. "Good night, Bobby," she replied softly, as. He drove home. Bobby's phone rang. It was his executive assistant, Claire. "Sir, I'm sorry to call so late, but there's been a development. Someone leaked information about Ms. Thompson's hiring to the financial press. The Wall Street Journal is running a story tomorrow questioning your leadership decisions. William has already issued a statement distancing the board from your actions." Bobby, grip the steering wheel tighter. "Call our PR team. I want a statement ready by morning making it clear that I stand by all my decisions as CEO. And Claire, find out who leaked that information." "Already working on it, sir." Also, the Tokyo investors called. They're concerned about the board meeting on Friday. They're requesting reassurance. "Tell them I'll call personally tomorrow." Bobby ended the call, anger building inside him. His brother was making a move, using Sarah as leverage. It was a calculated attack, one their father would have approved of. When Bobby reached his penthouse, he poured himself a scotch and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. In the reflection, he saw his father's face again, cold, calculating, relentless in pursuit of power and wealth. For the first time in years, Bobby didn't see himself in that reflection. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Lily's fever broke. She wants you to know she figured out how to add fractions with different denominators." Her words, "Tell Bobby I did it." Bobby smiled, something loosening in his chest. He texted back, "Tell her I'm proud of her." Across town, William was also working late, reviewing documents with the company's legal counsel. "These allegations about Robert's mental state are serious," the lawyer said cautiously. "We'd need substantial evidence to remove him as CEO, even temporarily." "I'm not suggesting we claim he's incompetent," William replied smoothly, "just that his recent behavior demonstrates poor judgment. The board only needs to lose confidence in his leadership." The lawyer frowned. "And this cleaning woman, she's the smoking gun." William smiled thinly. "She's just the beginning. My brother has always been emotionally stunted. Our father made sure of that. But now that he's finally developing feelings, he's making mistakes. Big ones. All we need to do is wait and document them. And if the board doesn't agree?" William's smile vanished. "They will. The Westbrook legacy is at stake. Nothing is more important than that." The headline of the Wall Street Journal blared across Bobby's desk. "Westbrook Industries CEO makes questionable hires, signs of instability or new direction." Accompanying the article was a grainy photo of Bobby, Sarah, and Lily leaving her apartment building, clearly taken with a telephoto lens. The invasion of privacy made his blood boil. The board meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock, giving Bobby several hours to prepare his defense. But instead of rehearsing arguments or reviewing financial data, he found himself in Sarah's department, watching her train new cleaning staff on eco-friendly products. "These solutions cost more up front," she was explaining, "but they're safer for employees and the environment. Plus, they reduce sick days and workers' compensation claims. The savings outweigh the costs within 3 months." Her team nodded, some taking notes. Bobby observed from the doorway, struck by her natural leadership. She was practical, yet compassionate, firm but approachable. When she noticed him, she excused herself and walked over. "I saw the newspaper," she said quietly. "I'm so sorry. If my being here is causing problems—" "It's not your fault," Bobby interrupted. "My brother is using you to get to me. This is about control of the company." "Not about you." Sarah studied his face. "But why risk so much for us? You barely know us." Bobby struggled to articulate what he himself didn't fully understand. "I've spent my entire life making decisions based on profit margins and market projections. I've accumulated wealth beyond reason, but I've never—" he hesitated. "I've never felt like I was making a difference to anyone." "And now you do?" Sarah asked, her voice gentle. "When Lily smiled at that birthday cake," Bobby admitted, "it was the first time I felt like I'd done something that mattered." Sarah touched his arm briefly. "That matters more than you know. But Bobby, your company matters too. Don't throw away what you've built because of us." "I'm not throwing anything away," he replied firmly. "I'm just finally figuring out what's worth fighting for." As Sarah returned to her training session, Bobby's phone buzzed with a text from Claire. Mr. Maxwell Sterling from Le Ciel Restaurant on line 1. Says it's urgent. Bobby frowned and took the call in an empty office. Sterling, what can I do for you? Mr. Westbrook, Maxwell's oily voice came through. I wanted to personally apologize for the incident with that little girl at my restaurant. I've disciplined the manager severely. You mean you fired him after the story broke, Bobby said, coldly. Save your damage control for someone who cares. Actually, Maxwell continued, undeterred, I'm calling because a certain photographer was asking questions about that night, offering money for details about you and the woman and child. I thought you should know. Bobby's grip tightened on the phone. What did you tell them? Nothing yet, Maxwell replied, emphasis on yet. I value discretion and loyal customers. The implication was clear. Bobby bit back his disgust. What do you want, Sterling? Nothing major, just your continued patronage. Perhaps a mention of Le Ciel at your next charity function. We're expanding to Chicago and could use the Westbrook endorsement. Fine, Bobby agreed tersely. You'll have it. And Sterling, if one word about Sarah or Lily appears in the press, from your restaurant I'll buy the building and turn it into a fast food chain. He hung up, disgusted with the transactional nature of his world. Had every relationship in his life been based on leverage and mutual benefit? Had he ever connected with anyone simply as a human being? At 1:30, Bobby headed to the executive floor for the board meeting. Claire intercepted him with a folder of documents, financial projections, sustainability reports, and employee satisfaction surveys, she explained. The facilities department's productivity is up 22% since Ms. Thompson took over. I highlighted that section. Bobby took the folder. Surprised. You support my decisions? Claire's professional demeanor softened slightly. Sir, I've been your assistant for 8 years. This is the first time I've seen you fight for something other than market share. It's refreshing. The boardroom fell silent as Bobby entered. 12 faces turned to him, expressions ranging from concern to outright hostility. William sat at the far end, a thin smile on his lips. Thank you all for coming, Bobby began, remaining standing. I understand there are concerns about my recent decisions. Let me address them directly. For the next 30 minutes, Bobby outlined the improvements Sarah had implemented, the cost savings her department had achieved, and the positive effect on employee morale. He presented logical, data-driven arguments for every decision he'd made. In conclusion, he finished, Ms. Thompson's hiring was not emotional or impulsive. It was strategic. Her unique perspective has already generated measurable returns. William slow clapped sarcastically. Bravo, little brother. A masterful performance, but let's address the elephant in the room, shall we? He slid photographs across the table. Bobby at Sarah's apartment. Bobby with Lily at a coffee shop. Bobby helping them move into a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. This isn't about business, William continued. It's about your inappropriate relationship with an employee and her daughter. You're emotionally compromised and it's affecting your judgment. Patricia Winters studied the photos with a frown. Robert, while your personal life is your own affair, the appearance of impropriety— There is no impropriety, Bobby stated firmly. Ms. Thompson is an employee who has excelled in her position. Any personal interaction has been above board and transparent. Then explain this, William challenged, sliding forward a final photo. Bobby touching Sarah's face the night he visited when Lily was sick. The tender gesture looked intimate out of context. Bobby felt a surge of anger. Have I violated any company policies? Has the company's performance suffered? Are our shareholders complaining about our record profits? No. This is a personal vendetta, nothing more. William's face hardened. This is about protecting our father's legacy from your midlife crisis. Our father's legacy, Bobby repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. Let's talk about that legacy, shall we? A man so cruel his wife abandoned her children to escape him. A man who valued wealth over his son's happiness. A man who died alone, surrounded by possessions, but not a single person who genuinely cared about him. Is that the legacy you're so desperate to protect? Silence fell over the room. Even William seemed momentarily speechless. "I move to conclude this meeting," Patricia said finally. "We've heard enough. The board will deliberate and inform you of our decision regarding leadership by the end of the week." As the board members filed out, William lingered. "You've changed, Bobby, and not for the better." "No, I'm finally changing for the better," Bobby replied. "Our father would hate the man I'm becoming. That's how I know I'm on the right path." That evening, Bobby found himself once again at Sarah's new apartment, a modest two-bedroom in a safer neighborhood that he'd helped her find. Lily was excitedly showing him her new room, complete with a proper bed and a desk for her studies. "And, look, Bobby, I have a whole bookshelf for my space books," she exclaimed, proudly displaying her collection. "It's wonderful," Bobby agreed, smiling at her enthusiasm. "A proper room for a future astronaut." Sarah called them for dinner, a simple meal of spaghetti and meatballs that she'd prepared. As they ate, Bobby found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did. There were no power plays here, no hidden agendas, just genuine conversation and companionship. "How was the board meeting?" Sarah asked after Lily had gone to practice with her telescope on the small balcony. "Contentious," Bobby admitted. "They'll decide my fate by Friday." Sarah's expression grew troubled. "This is because of us, isn't it? Your brother is using your relationship with Lily and me against you." "My relationship with my brother has been broken for years," Bobby said, twirling pasta on his fork. "This just gave him the ammunition he needed." He hesitated, then added, "The board saw pictures of us together, here and at your old apartment." Sarah paled. "We were being watched. That's disturbing." "Welcome to my world," Bobby said grimly. "Privacy is an illusion when stakes are high. I'm sorry you've been dragged into this." "What will happen if they vote against you?" Sarah asked. "Best case, I retain my position but with oversight. Worst case, I'm removed as CEO." Bobby shrugged as if it didn't matter, though they both knew it did. Sarah reached across the table and took his hand. "I've spent most of Lily's life teaching her that material things don't define us, that who we are matters more than what we have. Maybe it's time you learned that lesson too." Bobby looked at their joined hands, feeling an unfamiliar peace despite the professional chaos looming. "Maybe you're right." Later, as he prepared to leave, Lily ran up and hugged him impulsively. Bobby froze for a moment, then awkwardly patted her back. "You'll come for dinner again tomorrow, right?" she asked. "Mom's making her famous lasagna. It's the best in the whole world." Bobby glanced at Sarah, who smiled and nodded. "I'd like that very much," he said. At the door, an awkward moment stretched between Bobby and Sarah. There was something unspoken growing between them, something neither was ready to name. "Whatever happens with the board," Sarah said softly, "you've made a difference to us. I hope you know that." "You've made a difference to me too," Bobby admitted. "More than I can say." On impulse, he leaned forward and kissed her cheek. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise, then softened. She touched his face gently. "Good night, Bobby." "Good night, Sarah." As Bobby drove home, his phone rang with William's number. He almost ignored it, then reluctantly answered. "What now, William?" "I thought you should know," William said, his voice strangely subdued. "I found Dad's journals while looking for leverage against you. There's something you need to see. Come to the mansion tomorrow morning." "Why would I do that?" Bobby asked suspiciously. There was a pause before William replied, "Because it's about Mom, and why she really left." Bobby's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I'll be there at 9. As he ended the call, Bobby felt a creeping sense of dread. Whatever William had discovered, it threatened to upend not just his professional life, but the carefully constructed narrative of his past, a past he'd spent decades trying to forget. The Westbrook family mansion stood on 5 acres in Greenwich, Connecticut, a monument to wealth and status that Bobby had avoided for years. As his car crunched up the gravel driveway, memories assaulted him. Stern lectures in his father's study, silent dinners in the cavernous dining room, the hollow echo of his mother's absence. Mrs. Delaney, the housekeeper who had worked for the family for over 30 years, opened the door. Her lined face brightened at the sight of him. "Master Robert," she said warmly. "It's been too long." "Hello, Mrs. Delaney," Bobby replied, surprised by how genuinely pleased he was to see her. She had been the closest thing to maternal warmth in this cold house. "How are you?" "Still kicking," she said with a smile. "Mr. William is in your father's study." Bobby nodded, steeling himself. The study had been his father's inner sanctum, a place of judgment and criticism rather than nurturing. The heavy oak door was ajar, and Bobby paused before pushing it open. William sat behind their father's massive desk, looking oddly small despite his 6'2" frame. Before him lay an open leather-bound journal and a tumbler of amber liquid, despite the early hour. "You came," William said, looking up. His usual polished appearance was rumpled as if he'd slept in his clothes. "You said it was about Mom." Bobby remained standing, unwilling to sit in any of the chairs where he'd endured so many lectures. "What did you find?" William pushed the journal across the desk. "Dad's private thoughts. I was looking for ammunition against you. Board leverage. Instead I found this." He gestured to the open page. "Read it." Bobby reluctantly picked up the journal, recognizing his father's precise handwriting. June 15th, 1995. Elizabeth threatens to take the boys and leave again. Claims I'm too harsh with Robert. The boy is soft, emotional. He needs discipline to survive in this world. She doesn't understand what it takes to build something lasting. If she leaves, I'll destroy her. I've made the arrangements. She'll never see the boys again if she tries. Bobby's hands trembled slightly as he turned the page. June 30th, 1995. It's done. Elizabeth is gone. I've told the boys she abandoned them. Better they hate her than become weak like her. William believes me. Robert is less convinced, but he'll learn. Sentiment is a liability in business and in life. I've instructed the staff to return all her letters unopened. In time, she'll stop trying. Bobby looked up, his throat tight. She didn't abandon us. He drove her away, then blocked her from contacting us. William nodded, pouring more scotch into his glass. Keep reading. It gets worse. Bobby turned several more pages. December 25th, 1995. Robert asked for a cake for his birthday again. Reminded him of our discussion about weakness. The boy actually cried. Had to be firm. William understands. Hasn't mentioned Christmas or birthdays in years. Robert will learn, or he'll fail. There's no middle ground in this world. May 18th, 1996. Elizabeth's lawyer contacted mine again. She's still fighting for visitation. I've made it clear, if she pursues this, I'll use every resource to paint her as unstable and unfit. My investigators have manufactured enough evidence to ensure she'll never win in court. The letters to the boys have finally stopped. Good. Clean break. Bobby slammed the journal shut, nausea rising in his throat. He lied to us our entire lives. She tried to stay in touch. She fought for us. For years, William confirmed, his voice hollow. There are more journals. I spent all night reading them. She tried until we were in college, Bobby. Dad had investigators follow her, threatened her, blocked every attempt. Bobby sank into a chair, the weight of this revelation crushing him. Where is she now? Is she still alive? William pulled out a folder. I had our security team trace her. She's alive. Living in Portland, Oregon. Remarried 20 years ago to a doctor. No other children. Bobby stared at the folder, but couldn't bring himself to open it. Why are you showing me this? Yesterday you were trying to destroy me professionally. Now you're sharing family secrets? William laughed bitterly. Turns out Dad lied to me too. All those years I tried to be exactly what he wanted. Cold, calculating, ruthless. I thought that's what made a Westbrook. I thought that's what made a man. He took another drink. But he was just a vindictive, controlling bastard who couldn't stand the idea of anyone defying him. Including his sons, Bobby added quietly. Especially his sons. William rubbed his face tiredly. I kept trying to protect his legacy. But what legacy? Cruelty, manipulation, emotional terrorism. Bobby studied his brother, seeing vulnerability for the first time in decades. What does this mean for the board meeting? For your campaign against me? William looked away. I called Patricia this morning, told her I was withdrawing my concerns. The meeting's cancelled. Just like that? Bobby asked skeptically. Reading these journals, seeing what he really was, William gestured helplessly. I've spent my life trying to be him, Bobby, and you've spent yours trying not to be. Maybe we were both wrong. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, 30 years of competition and resentment, impossible to dismantle in a single conversation. Finally, Bobby stood. I need time to process this. All of it. There's one more thing, William said, sliding an envelope across the desk. Mom's current address and phone number. Security confirmed it's current. Bobby stared at the envelope as if it might burn him. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Neither am I, William admitted, but I'm tired of living with ghosts. Bobby left the mansion with the envelope and a copy of their father's journal, his mind reeling. He drove aimlessly for hours, eventually finding himself outside Sarah's apartment building. He sat in his car, unable to move, overwhelmed by the revelation that his entire understanding of his past was built on lies. His phone rang. Sarah. He answered numbly. Bobby, are you okay? You were supposed to be here an hour ago. He had completely forgotten about their dinner plans. I'm sorry, he said, his voice rough. Something came up. Family matters. Oh, Sarah sounded concerned. Is everything all right? I don't know, he admitted. I'm actually outside your building right now. I don't know why I came here. Come up, Sarah said without hesitation. Lily's been waiting to show you her science project. Upstairs, Sarah took one look at his face and sent Lily to finish her project in her room. She guided Bobby to the couch and sat beside him. What happened? She asked gently. The story spilled out of him. His mother's supposed abandonment, his father's cruel deception, the journals, the decades of believing he wasn't worth loving. My entire life has been shaped by this lie, he concluded, staring at his hands. I became who I am because I thought she left me without a backward glance. Sarah listened without interruption, her expression compassionate. When he finished, she took his hand. What will you do now? Will you contact her? Bobby glanced at the envelope on the coffee table. I don't know. What would I even say? Hello? Mother, sorry I believed you abandoned me for 30 years. You could start with hello, Sarah suggested softly. The rest will come. Bobby looked at her, really looked at her, taking in the gentle strength in her eyes, the compassion in her smile. Without thinking, he leaned forward and kissed her. Sarah stiffened in surprise, then softened, returning the kiss with a tenderness that made his chest ache. When they parted, Sarah touched his face. Are you sure about this? Your life is complicated enough right now. The only thing I'm sure about is how I feel when I'm with you and Lily, Bobby admitted. Everything else is chaos, but this, you, makes sense. From the hallway came a small gasp. They turned to see Lily standing there wide-eyed. You kissed my mom, she said, her voice caught between shock and delight. Sarah blushed. Lily, honey, does this mean you're going to be my dad now? Lily interrupted, hope blazing in her eyes. Bobby and Sarah exchanged startled glances. The question hung in the air too, direct and too important to dismiss. Lily, Bobby began carefully, relationships are complicated. Your mom and I are figuring things out. Lily's face fell slightly. But you like each other. I can tell. And you already do dad things like helping with my homework and coming to dinner. Come here. Sarah patted the couch between them. Lily sat, looking from one adult to the other. Bobby has some big things happening in his life right now. Things he needs to work through. Like, what? Lily asked. Bobby hesitated, then decided on honesty. I just found out my mother didn't abandon me like I thought. My father kept her from contacting me and my brother. Lily's eyes widened. So she still loves you? The simple question hit Bobby like a physical blow. I don't know. I hope so. You should call her, Lily said decisively. When I lost my red backpack at school, I was sad for days. Maybe your mom is sad too, missing you all this time. Out of the mouths of babes, Bobby thought. He looked at the envelope again. Maybe you're right. The moment was interrupted by Bobby's phone ringing. It was Claire. Sir, I'm sorry to bother you after hours, but there's been a situation. Maxwell Sterling gave an interview to the New York Post. It's not good. They're running it in tomorrow's edition. Bobby's jaw tightened. What did he say? He implied that your interest in Ms. Thompson and her daughter is inappropriate. He described the night at the restaurant in unflattering terms, suggesting you were showing off and buying affection. Bobby felt rage building. I'll sue him for defamation. There's more, Claire continued reluctantly. Someone from Ms. Thompson's old neighborhood gave a quote saying she's using her daughter to hook a rich man and that she's always been looking for shortcuts. Sarah, seeing Bobby's expression darken, touched his arm. What is it? He covered the phone. Maxwell Sterling gave an interview about us. It's ugly. Sarah paled. About Lily, too. Bobby nodded grimly, then uncovered the phone. Claire, have legal prepare to file suit first thing in the morning and find out who else they interviewed. I want to know everyone involved. After hanging up, he turned to Sarah, who was hugging Lily protectively. I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. What did they say about us? Sarah asked quietly. Bobby hesitated, glancing at Lily. We can discuss it later. They said bad things, didn't they? Lily asked, her voice small. The kids at school already say stuff. That we're poor, that Mom is just the cleaning lady. Sarah hugged her daughter tighter. Lily, honey, people say unkind things when they don't understand. What matters is that we know the truth. And what is the truth? Bobby asked, suddenly needing to hear it from Sarah herself. Sarah met his gaze steadily. The truth is that we care about you, Bobby. Not your money or your position. You. Bobby felt something shift inside him. A wall crumbling, a certainty emerging from the rubble of his carefully constructed defenses. I care about you too, both of you, more than I thought possible. Lily looked between them hopefully. So you are staying, even with the bad newspaper stories? Bobby thought about his father's journals, about his mother waiting in Portland, about William's unexpected alliance, about the board and the company and all the complications of his life. Then he looked at Lily's hopeful face and Sarah's gentle eyes, and suddenly the choice seemed simple. Yes, he said firmly, I'm staying, if you'll have me. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Bobby, are you sure? Your life, your company. We'll still be there, he finished for her. But this, what we have here, feels more important. Lily launched herself at him in a fierce hug. Bobby held her awkwardly at first, then more securely, meeting Sarah's gaze over the child's head. In her eyes he saw the promise of something he'd never dared hope for, a real family, built on love rather than obligation or appearance. Outside the apartment, a photographer with a telephoto lens captured the moment through the window. Bobby, embracing Lily, Sarah watching them with tears in her eyes. By morning, the image would accompany Sterling's toxic interview, but it would tell a different story than the restaurateur intended. It would show what looked remarkably like a family being born. The New York Post's headline screamed across newsstands throughout the city, "Billionaire's secret family, Westbrook CEO's unusual relationship with cleaning woman and child." The Missouri article itself was a masterpiece of insinuation and half-truths, painting Bobby as either having a breakdown or engaging in inappropriate behavior, and Sarah as an opportunistic gold digger using her daughter as bait. But the photograph, Bobby, holding Lily while Sarah watched, told a different story. In it, Bobby's normally impassive face showed unmistakable tenderness, and Sarah's expression held not calculation, but gentle wonder. It was, despite the tabloid's intentions, a deeply human moment captured between three people forming a connection. By 9 that morning, Westbrook Tower was under siege by reporters. Bobby strode through them without comment, William unexpectedly at his side, running interference. Upstairs, the executive floor was buzzing with whispered conversations that stopped abruptly when the brothers entered. In Bobby's office, the crisis management team waited with grim expressions. Patricia Winters had joined them, her usual elegant composure showing cracks of concern. The investors are panicking, the head of investor relations began without preamble. The Tokyo Group called to postpone their deal. 3 major shareholders have expressed grave concerns about the company's public image. Maxwell Sterling has agreed to a primetime interview tonight, the PR director added. He's positioning himself as a whistleblower, exposing inappropriate behavior. Patricia raised a hand to silence them. What concerns me most, Robert, is not the relationship itself, but your judgment in conducting it so publicly. The board cancelled yesterday's vote based on William's recommendation, but in light of today's developments, several members are reconsidering. Bobby looked at the newspaper spread across his desk, at the photo of him holding Lily. Is this really what concerns the board? That I've formed a relationship with a woman and her daughter? Or is it that Sarah was hired as a cleaner, rather than a debutante? Patricia's expression tightened. Don't be deliberately obtuse. The concern is the appearance of impropriety. Hiring someone you're personally involved with, giving special treatment, conducting a relationship that opens the company to public scrutiny and potential lawsuits. There was no impropriety, Bobby stated firmly. I hired Sarah because she was qualified. Any personal relationship developed after that. The timing is irrelevant to public perception, the PR director countered. We need to get ahead of this. I suggest a statement distancing yourself from Ms. Thompson and her daughter, emphasizing that your relationship is strictly professional. Bobby stared at him incredulously. You want me to publicly reject them? To protect stock prices? To protect the company your father built, Patricia corrected. The company you've dedicated your life to. A weighted silence fell over the room. Bobby looked at William, who had remained uncharacteristically quiet. And what do you think, brother? William met his gaze steadily. I think our father would sacrifice anyone and anything for this company. He paused. But I also think our father was wrong about a lot of things. Bobby turned back to the crisis team. I won't be issuing any statement rejecting Sarah or Lily. Instead, prepare something simple and honest. My personal life is my own, and I'm fortunate to have found people who bring joy and meaning to it. My commitment to Westbrook Industries remains unwavering. The PR director sputtered. That's practically confirming the relationship. The markets will adjust, Bobby interrupted. They always do. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a company to run and a family to protect. As the team filed out, visibly dissatisfied, Patricia lingered. Robert, I've known you since you were a boy. I've watched you sacrifice everything personal for this company. Are you certain this woman and child are worth the risk? Bobby considered the question seriously. For the first time in my life, Patricia, I'm certain that something matters more than this company. That has to be worth something. Patricia's severe expression softened slightly. Your mother would be proud of you. Bobby's head snapped up. You knew? About my mother? I suspected, Patricia admitted. Your father's story never rang true. Elizabeth wasn't the type to abandon her children. She touched his shoulder briefly. Whatever you decide, make it for the right reasons, not to spite your father and not simply to please others. After she left, William settled into a chair across from Bobby. Sterling's interview airs at 8 tonight. It will be ugly. Let him talk, Bobby replied. Words can only hurt if you value the speaker's opinion. William leaned forward. There's another option. I still have contacts from my wilder days. People who can find dirt on anyone. Sterling has skeletons, health code violations, tax issues, rumors of affairs with staff. We could destroy him before he opens his mouth. Bobby was momentarily tempted by the ruthless simplicity of it, the old Westbrook way of handling threats. No, he said finally. That's what Dad would do. We need to be better than that. Then what's the plan? Honesty, Bobby said simply. No spin, no counterattack, just truth. William looked skeptical. That's not much of a strategy. It's the only one I can live with. By afternoon, Sarah had been forced to leave work early as reporters gathered outside the Westbrook Tower, shouting questions when she emerged. Bobby had arranged for a car to take her home, but the damage was done. Her colleagues had seen the newspaper. had heard the whispers and speculation. When Bobby arrived at her apartment that evening, Sarah was pacing the living room while Lily sat at the kitchen table, unusually subdued. The school principal called, Sarah said without preamble. Some parents are complaining, saying I'm setting a bad example. They're suggesting Lily should be removed from certain activities because of the disruption. Bobby felt a surge of protective anger. That's ridiculous. You've done nothing wrong, haven't I? Sarah's voice cracked. I let myself believe this could work, that someone like you could be part of our lives without consequences. I should have known better. Sarah. Mom got fired today, Lily interjected quietly from the table. Ms. Rivera from HR said it was for the good of the company. Bobby froze. What? That's impossible. I'm the CEO. No one fires anyone without my approval. Apparently, the board issued a directive, Sarah explained, her voice tight with controlled emotion. Conflict of interest concerns. Ms. Rivera was very apologetic. Bobby pulled out his phone, furious. I'll call Patricia right now. This is unacceptable. Sarah placed her hand over his. Don't, please. It will only make things worse. She took a deep breath. Bobby, I think we need to take a step back. What do you mean? His chest tightened with sudden dread. This, us, it's hurting everyone. Your company, your reputation. Lily's being ostracized at school. I've lost my job. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Maybe we moved too fast. Maybe this was a mistake. No, Bobby said firmly. The mistake was letting other people dictate what matters. I can fix this. How? Sarah challenged. By destroying your company? By fighting the board? By making Lily endure more whispers and stares at school? From the kitchen table, Lily spoke up again. Are you breaking up with Bobby, Mum? The plaintive question hung in the air. Sarah closed her eyes briefly. Honey, sometimes adults need space to figure things out. But we're happy with him, Lily protested, her voice rising. He makes you smile. He helps me with math. He doesn't need to go away. Bobby knelt to meet Lily at eye level. No one's going away permanently. Your mom's right that we need to figure some things out, but that doesn't mean I'm disappearing from your lives. Lily's bottom lip trembled. That's what Dad did. He disappeared. Sarah made a small, pained sound. Lily, that's different. Your father didn't choose to leave us. How do I know Bobby won't leave too? Lily demanded, tears spilling now. Everyone leaves. Bobby felt something crack inside him, the last remnant of the emotional wall he'd built decades ago. Lily, look at me. He waited until her tearful eyes met his. I promise you that no matter what happens between your mom and me, I will always be there for you. Always. You can't promise that, she whispered. Yes, I can, Bobby insisted gently, because some promises matter more than anything else, and this one matters most of all. Lily studied his face, searching for deception or uncertainty. Finding none, she launched herself into his arms, sobbing against his shoulder. Bobby held her, looking over her head at Sarah, whose own tears fell silently. We'll figure this out, he mouthed to her. Sarah nodded, but her expression remained troubled. Later, after Lily had finally fallen asleep, Bobby and Sarah sat on the small balcony, the city lights glittering below them. The board overstepped, Bobby said quietly. I'll reinstate you tomorrow. Sarah shook her head. No, Bobby, that will only make things worse. This isn't just about a job. She took his hand. You have to see that this isn't working, not the way we hoped. So we just give up? Let my father win from the grave? Let William and the board dictate our lives? No, Sarah said softly, but we need to be smarter about this. Right now we're all losing. You, me, Lily. There has to be another way. Bobby was silent for a long moment, thinking. Finally he said, what if there is another way? What if I step down as CEO? Sarah stared at him in shock. You can't be serious. That company is your life. It was, Bobby corrected. Now it's just a company. An important one, yes, but not worth sacrificing what we could have together. Bobby, you can't give up everything you've built. I'm not giving up, he interrupted. I'm choosing. There's a difference. He squeezed her hand. I have more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes. I own significant shares in Westbrook Industries that will continue to provide income. I could start a new company or do nothing at all for a while. Sarah studied his face. You really mean this, don't you? I've never meant anything more, Bobby affirmed. But I need to know, if I do this, if I remove the corporate complications, are we worth fighting for? Are we something you want? Sarah's eyes filled with fresh tears. I want what's between us to have a chance. A real chance without scandal and gossip and damage to Lily. I want to see who we could be together, outside the shadows of your company and my job there. Bobby touched her face gently. Then that's what we'll do. There's one more thing, Sarah said hesitantly. Your mother. Have you decided whether to contact her? Bobby glanced at the envelope that still sat unopened on the counter. I think it's time. For all of us to move forward, I need to resolve my past. Sarah leaned her head against his shoulder, and they sat in companionable silence, watching the city below. For the first time in days, Bobby felt something like peace. The path ahead was uncertain, but the choice itself brought clarity. Inside the apartment, his phone buzzed repeatedly with calls from the crisis team, William, board members, all, urgently demanding his attention as Sterling's interview approached. Bobby turned off the phone without checking the messages. Some crises couldn't be managed, some choices couldn't be optimized, some values couldn't be quantified on balance sheets. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight, on a small balcony above the city, Bobby Westbrook had finally figured out what truly mattered. 3 months later, Bobby sat on a bench in Portland's Washington Park, the summer sun warming his face. The rose garden was in full bloom, filling the air with fragrance. He checked his watch again, 10 minutes until the meeting he'd both anticipated and dreaded for weeks. Nervous? Sarah asked, squeezing his hand. Terrified, Bobby admitted with a small smile. 30 years is a long time. Lily, who had been examining the roses with scientific curiosity, rejoined them on the bench. I think your mom will be really happy to see you, she declared with the absolute certainty of childhood. Mums always want to see their kids. Sarah smoothed Lily's hair. Honey, remember what we talked about? This is complicated for Bobby. I know, Lily nodded sagely. Because his dad told lies about his mum, but now he knows the truth, so they can be a family again. Bobby marveled at her simplicity. In Lily's world, reconciliation followed truth as naturally as night followed day. If only adult relationships were so straightforward. The past 3 months had been anything but simple. Bobby's resignation as CEO of Westbrook Industries had sent shockwaves through the business world. The board had initially rejected it, then reluctantly accepted when he made it clear he wasn't changing his mind. William, in a surprise move, had stepped up as interim CEO while a search committee looked for a permanent replacement. The press had a field day. Billionaire abandons empire for love, screamed one headline. Westbrook heir chooses family over. Fortune, declared another. For a few weeks they couldn't go anywhere without being recognized and photographed. But gradually, as often happens in the rapid-fire news cycle, the story faded. A political scandal, a celebrity divorce, and a tech company meltdown pushed the Westbrook saga to the back pages, then out of the papers entirely. Bobby and Sarah had been able to start building their life together away from the spotlight. They'd moved to a comfortable but modest house in Connecticut, close enough to New York for Bobby to maintain his board position, but far enough to create a boundary between their family life and his former corporate world. Sarah had found work as an office manager at a local medical practice, a job she'd gotten on her own merits with no strings pulled. Lily had transferred to a new school where nobody knew her as the cleaning lady's daughter or the billionaire's charity project. She was simply Lily Thompson, the math whiz with a passion for astronomy. She'd joined the science club and made friends who shared her interests. And now, here they were in Portland, waiting for a reunion that had been 30 years in the making. That's her, Bobby said suddenly, his voice tight. Sarah and Lily followed his gaze to a slender woman walking slowly along the garden path. Elizabeth Westbrook, now Elizabeth Carson, had aged gracefully, her silver-streaked dark hair cut in a stylish bob. She wore simple linen pants and a blue blouse, a canvas tote bag over her shoulder. She hadn't seen them yet, her attention on the path ahead. Bobby stood, his legs unsteady. "I'm not sure I can do this." Sarah rose beside him. "You can. We're right here with you." Lily slipped her small hand into his. "It's okay to be scared. Mom says brave people get scared too. They just do the scary thing anyway." Bobby looked down at her, then at Sarah, drawing strength from them both. He squeezed Lily's hand and nodded. "Let's go." They walked forward together. Elizabeth looked up, her steps faltering as she caught sight of them. For a moment, she seemed frozen, one hand rising to her throat. Then she moved toward them with increasing speed until she stood just a few feet away. "Robert," she said, her voice breaking on his name. "You came." "Mother," Bobby replied formally, then corrected himself. "Mom." Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. "I never thought I'd hear you call me that again." An awkward silence fell between them, 30 years of separation creating a chasm that words alone couldn't bridge. Sarah gently nudged Bobby. "This is Sarah," he said, finding his voice, "and this is Lily." Elizabeth smiled through her tears. "Hello, Sarah. Hello, Lily. Thank you for bringing my son back to me." "Are you really Bobby's mom?" Lily asked, studying her with frank curiosity. "You don't look old enough." Elizabeth laughed, a warm sound that stirred something in Bobby's memory. "That's very kind of you. I'm 62, which feels plenty old some days. My grandma would have been older than you, but she died before I was born," Lily informed her. "I've never had a grandma before." Elizabeth's expression softened as she looked at Bobby. "And I've never had a granddaughter." The simple exchange broke something loose in Bobby's chest. "I thought you abandoned us," he said, the words escaping before he could stop them. "All these years I thought you didn't want us." Elizabeth's face crumpled. "Oh, Bobby, not a day went by that I didn't think of you and William, not a single day." They settled on a bench, Sarah and Lily giving them space by wandering a short distance away to examine the roses. Elizabeth opened her tote bag and removed a worn photo album. "I kept everything," she said, her voice low. "Every newspaper article about you boys, your graduations, company milestones, charity events, even the gossip columns." She smiled faintly. "I've followed your life from afar, even when I couldn't be part of it." Bobby stared at the album, at the carefully preserved clippings documenting his life, his achievements, his rare public appearances, even his brief engagement years ago that had ended before the wedding. "You never gave up on us." "Never," Elizabeth confirmed. "I tried to contact you both for years. Your father's lawyers blocked every attempt. When you turned 18, I thought, but by then the narrative was set. You believed I'd abandoned you." "I'm sorry," Bobby said, the inadequacy of the words painfully apparent, "for believing him, for not looking for you." Elizabeth closed the album, her hands trembling slightly. "Your father was controlling, manipulative. He shaped how you saw the world. That wasn't your fault. But I became like him," Bobby admitted, "cold, driven, putting business above everything." "Not anymore," Elizabeth observed, glancing toward Sarah and Lily. "I read about your resignation, about them." Bobby followed her gaze, watching as Sarah knelt beside Lily, pointing out something in a flower bed. "They changed everything. Love tends to do that," Elizabeth said softly. "It's why your father feared it so much. Love makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you stronger in ways ambition never can." They talked for hours, walking through the gardens as Elizabeth shared stories of her life after leaving. Her struggles to rebuild, her work as a librarian, meeting her second husband Michael, a pediatrician who'd finally given her the supportive partnership she'd never had with George Westbrook. "Michael wanted to come today," she explained as they rested on another bench, "but I thought this first meeting should be just us. He's, hoping to meet you soon, though." "I'd like that," Bobby said, surprised to find he meant it. Sarah and I are staying in Portland for a week. Elizabeth's face brightened. Perhaps dinner tomorrow? At our home? We'd love that, Sarah interjected, rejoining them with Lily, who was now wearing a crown of daisies that Elizabeth had woven for her. As the afternoon waned, they walked Elizabeth to her car. The farewell was awkward, hovering between formality and the intimacy they hadn't yet rebuilt. May I? Elizabeth hesitated, then continued. Would it be all right if I hugged you, Bobby? Bobby nodded, not trusting himself to speak. His mother stepped forward and embraced him, a tentative hug that grew firmer as he returned it. She smelled of gardenia perfume and something indefinably familiar that triggered a cascade of childhood memories. A bedtime story, a bandaged knee, a hand, brushing hair from his forehead. Thank you for finding me, Elizabeth whispered before pulling away, her cheeks wet. Thank you for never giving up, Bobby replied, his own voice rough with emotion. After Elizabeth drove away, the three of them walked back through the park toward their hotel. Lily skipped ahead, still wearing her daisy crown, while Bobby and Sarah followed hand in hand. How do you feel? Sarah asked. Bobby considered the question. Like I've found something I didn't know was missing. He paused. And like I need to call William. He should have the chance to reconnect with her too. Sarah nodded. Family healing takes time, but it starts with moments like today. Back at the hotel, while Sarah helped Lily prepare for bed, Bobby stood at the window overlooking the city. His phone buzzed with a text from William. How did it go with Mom? Bobby typed back, better than I expected. She wants to meet you too. I think you should come. There was a long pause before William's reply. Maybe. Things are complicated here, boards pushing back on the new direction. Bobby smiled slightly. His brother was still learning that some things mattered more than boardroom battles. Family. First, remember, the company will still be there. Another pause then. I'll book a flight for Friday. Progress, Bobby thought, for all of them. Later that night, with Lily asleep and Sarah reading beside him in bed, Bobby found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him here, from a cold, controlled existence focused solely on wealth and power to this warm hotel room with people who loved him for himself, not his position or bank account. What are you thinking about? Sarah asked, setting down her book. How much my life has changed since a little girl asked to blow out a birthday candle, Bobby replied, drawing her close. Sarah smiled. Lily has that effect on people. She sees the world as it could be, not just as it is. She gets that from her mother, Bobby said, kissing Sarah softly. Flattery, Sarah murmured against his lips. Careful or I might get used to it. Get used to it, Bobby said, suddenly serious. Get used to being loved and appreciated and valued, because that's what you deserve. What you both deserve. Sarah's expression softened. You deserve it too, Bobby. Love isn't a business transaction. It's not something you earn or negotiate for. It's a gift freely given. Bobby thought about his mother's words earlier that day, about how his father feared love because it made you vulnerable. He understood now that vulnerability wasn't weakness, but courage. The courage to open yourself to both pain and joy, rejection and acceptance. I have something for you, he said, reaching for his jacket draped over a nearby chair. From the pocket, he retrieved a small velvet box. I was going to wait until we got back to Connecticut, make some elaborate plan, but after today I realized something. What's that? Sarah asked, eyeing the box with a mixture of surprise and anticipation. That life is too short for waiting. That love should be celebrated when you find it. Bobby opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring. I don't want to be your boss or your benefactor. I want to be your partner, your husband, Lily's father if she'll have me. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Bobby, I know it hasn't been long, he continued quickly. We can wait to actually get married. Take all the time you need. But I wanted you to know that this, you, Lily, us, this is what I choose, every day. Sarah took the box with trembling hands. You know Lily will be thrilled. She's been dropping hints about calling you Dad for weeks. And you, Bobby asked, suddenly uncertain. What do you think? Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, seeing not the billionaire CEO or the wounded son, but the man who had brought birthday cake to a little girl, who had valued her work when others hadn't, who had chosen love over power when it mattered most. "I think," she said, slipping the ring onto her finger, "that the answer is yes." The next morning, they told Lily over breakfast. Her joyous reaction, a squeal of delight that startled nearby diners, followed by a barrage of wedding planning suggestions, confirmed what they already knew. Their unconventional family had always been meant to be. As they walked to Elizabeth's house for dinner that evening, Lily skipping ahead and chattering about having 2 grandmas now, Bobby reflected on the birthday wish that had started it all. A little girl had wished for someone to take care of her mother and be her father. Against all odds, in a world where such wishes rarely came true, this one had. Not through magic or miracle, but through the simple power of connection. A birthday. Candle that illuminated not just a cake, but the possibility of a different kind of life for all of them. "Penny for your thoughts," Sarah said, squeezing his hand. Bobby smiled, watching Lily's excited bouncing as they approached Elizabeth's house. "I was just thinking that some wishes are worth waiting for." Sarah followed his gaze and smiled. "Yes, they are." As Elizabeth opened her door, welcoming them with tears of joy, Bobby felt the final pieces of his past and future clicking into place. His mother hugged Lily as if she'd known her forever. Sarah chatted easily with Michael as he poured wine in the kitchen. And Bobby, standing in the doorway, allowed himself to fully embrace the truth he'd been learning since that night at Le Ciel, that the greatest fortune in life was not measured in dollars or real estate or corporate holdings, but in the love you gave and received, that the most valuable legacy wasn't a company or a name, but the connections you built and the hearts you touched, and that sometimes the most powerful